All right, so this is Sunday afternoon. It's 4 o'clock in Thailand time. Cat's here on the island. Drew, where are you?
I am in London.
You're in London. And Marcus, where are you?
I'm at home still.
What country is home in?
Estonia.
Estonia, that's right. I'll remember that next time. The last time you said it, I said, got to make a note of that. Yes, Estonia. And Pedro, we know where Pedro is. He's in Italy. So uh, today, I would like to talk about something that I've talked about many times, but it's been a long time since I've talked about it. But I'm going to put a slightly different perspective on it this time, and that is that we're going to introduce Buddhism in two different forms. There is an ordinary form and a noble form, and that we all in our culture start off in the ordinary form, and Buddhism is applied to that in the sense that all children, we teach them to become non barbarians and become socialized by giving them a set of rules, a set of supposed tos. Um, we often add punishment, and if we're lucky, we can add some rehabilitation in there. But this is the way that it all starts. When a young man joins the military or is drafted, the first thing they do with him is put him in boot camp, which means they put him through the ringer of a whole lot of rules. You get up when I talk to you, you sit down when I talk to you, you do this, you do that, and you do it according to what you're told to do. So all of our society is built upon that, and it has this extra part of it, and that is that it's a system built upon incrementalism. Everything comes in small steps. The journey to 1,000 miles is not taken in one step. You have to take a step, and then take another step, and then take another step. That religions are built this way too. That you can't just become enlightened immediately. That's their story. And in that regard, everyone who comes to the actual teachings of the Buddha come with that baggage of incrementalism and that set of rules, the way that things are supposed to be. In other words, we're talking about the ordinary kind of karma, which would be if you do good things, you'll get good results, and if you get bad things, you'll get bad results, but that's built up over time, a little bit at a time. Incremental is the way that we think about it. Now, all
Hey,
of Western,
Dhammarato.
yes,
We were talking just before the recording that for me, it's not built up over time. If I make a good decision at 5 o'clock versus a bad decision at 7 o'clock, that pays immediately by the basically by the next day.
yes, that's what we're eventually going to get into. Is the teaching of the Buddha is not an incremental system;
If
it's an
anything, it pays
immediate.
immediately because after I've done that a few times, then I'm like, oh no, I made a bad decision at 7. And if I have some wisdom, I'll be like, how can I fix this? How can I just drop something else so I can get back on track versus make it even worse?
All right, Drew, you're ahead of me. You're about 4 steps ahead of me. So,
Oh no, I
um,
don't want to do that. I like walking with you. I'll come back again.
all right. So, let us then talk about it in the sense that there are two Buddhisms: the Buddhism for the beginner, the Buddhism for the ordinary person, and then there is the noble Dhamma. And the noble Dhamma is not incremental, it's immediate. And yet, our whole society of incrementalism is based upon delayed gratification. And so, when the ordinary person comes then to Buddhism, the first thing that, like a young man in Westerner comes to Thailand, about the first thing that they'll want to teach him is the precepts. They treat him like a child. This is how you're supposed to be. You stand in line, you put away your clothes, you clean your room, you do what you're told, you do your homework, and all of these kind of rules. Delayed gratification. Yeah, what do we want? Gratification. When do we want it? Silence. We're not sure. Exactly. So, in this regard, we could say that not only are there two Buddhisms, but in that regard, there's also two noble paths, or two or four. There's two different kinds of Four Noble Truths, and that there are two different kinds of Eightfold Noble Paths. What would that be?
Doesn't have to remember 24 things.
No, you don't have to remember this. You just remember that there's a whole lower system, and then there's a higher system, and that just like any ladder that we're going to climb, you have to start in the lower, but if you climb correctly, you climb up. And what we're climbing from is that delayed gratification incremental system. An example of that is the straw that broke the camel's back. One more straw. People have that, like I've had one too many arguments and then I explode. That's that whole idea of incrementalism. And that Western philosophy is built upon that. In fact, yesterday, Tim and I had a long discussion that put that whole point is that the Buddhist system is not incremental, it's immediate, it's sudden. It's right now. The Zen talk about it like that. Sudden enlightenment, or telling the students you're already enlightened. This is that whole quality of the noble is, and you can think of it also as the distinction between the traveler and the resident. And here we are all out traveling in life. We think of a path as some place to go. We're out there, we're all pilgrims, looking for a holy place. And when we get to the holy place, are we a pilgrim then? The answer is probably we're in the habit of a pilgrim. So what does a pilgrim do when he gets to the holy site? He tries to go to another holy site. And he picks up and he moves. And one step at a time is this whole idea of incremental. Now, where this comes into dukkha is that we say we have to have dukkha, we put up with dukkha, we a little bit more dukkha, we investigate the dukkha, and soon we'll see it well enough that we can drop it. And the immediate way of doing it is that, oh, I can see that dukkha right now, I'm dropping it right now. Also, that leaves the possibility of the third noble truth. Because in the incremental system, there is no third noble truth. It's just more dukkha and more dukkha and more dukkha and more dukkha. But in the noble way, seeing the dukkha and dropping it, and automatically you're in that third noble truth. So, in that regard, we're getting down to it now and about the Eightfold Noble Path versus the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold, the normal path, and it is discussed at great length in this context in Sutta number 44 in the Majjhima Nikaya, where the Bhikkhuni Dhammadina describes to her ex-husband about the Eightfold Noble Path, and she starts and makes it into three categories: Sila, Samadhi, Panna. You've no doubt ever heard that phrase in that way. Sila, Samadhi, Panna. That's the ordinary way. And for children, we start off with the Sila with precepts. Oh, you don't kill, oh, you don't cheat, oh, you don't lie, you know, that kind of stuff of having a set of rules. This is actually an effective method, but there's another method that was there all along, but it's only when we become noble that we recognize that the true Eightfold Noble Path is not Sila, Samadhi, Panna, but the panna is already there. The wisdom is there as the foundation, and that's what gets the mind then fully organized. And when the mind is fully organized, then we're not about to go hurt ourselves or other people. So in that respect, the the noble path is panna, sila, panna, samadhi, sila. It's completely reversed. But for all the beginners and all the ones that start off on the path, in Thailand, the culture is Buddhism, and so everybody starts off as children on the path of the Sila. Behave yourself correctly. Stand in line, go to the Wat, wear white clothes, do what everybody else is doing. And so this is actually the path that Westerners, they want to short circuit that and go right into the wisdom. They want to read another book. They're looking for information, thinking that it's wisdom. And this is actually a point that I would want to make is the reason why Ajahn Chah's lineage is so successful is because they actually follow that method of Sila, Samadhi, Panna, especially in the sense of the Western monks having to fit in. They wear the robes the way that they're supposed to robes. They do the way that things are supposed to be done. And the idea that is when Sila is perfect or is purified, then we can move into Samadhi. So the beginning monks don't meditate. They practice doing what all the other monks are doing. They behave that way, and by behaving that way, they begin to start to think that way. And so this is the ordinary path, and it has some success. That in fact, Ajahn Chah's system has been successful and is growing beautifully in the West. But in the process of doing that, they're also beginning to convert out of the ordinary training system into the noble way of doing it. And for that reason, a lot of the real go ahead, Drew.
I've been to a few Ajahn Chah monasteries, and they've been a beautiful contact with the Buddha Dhamma and the noble Buddha Dhamma as well, because to my surprise, I've been to two monasteries, and both the abbots said similar things, which was, and obviously Longpo Samodo, which is, okay, we have these rites, rules, and rituals with the robes and the dress and the times that we eat, etc. And that we have the form so that we organize well and we live together in harmony, and it's conducive for practice.
Mm-hmm.
But we must recognize these forms as forms. We must recognize Buddhism as a label. We must recognize being a monk as a label. We must recognize practice as a label. And I mean, that's how kind of Longpo Samodo says it. Ajahn Amaro says it slightly differently. My favorite one is Ajahn Kusala, who he almost toys with it when he speaks about the rules. He laughs in the same way that he's almost telling a joke.
Well, the rules are a joke. All right. Here's the point: when your arm is good, you do not need to wear a plaster cast. When the arm is broken, it will deform unless you put it into a cast. So in the beginning, you can think of as everybody that comes to the watch broken-headed, and they need to wear a cast. And so the forms, the rites, the rituals, and all of that. That in fact, this is exactly where the point of this talk is coming from, is because Katz found himself at a typical monastery in Thailand that do a lot of chanting and do a lot of ritual, and that he's resistant to it, just like everybody is resistant to it. But it has enormous value. That in fact, one of the things that you can say is that the Sila itself, or the behavior and the forms that we have, is actually a cast that does set things straight so it can heal properly. That in fact, in the noble way, we can say, okay, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, we buy that. But as soon as you sit down in the meditation hall, either on a chair or cross-legged or whatever like that, fold your hands and fold your legs and close your eyes. Your Sila at that moment is perfect. Immediate gratification. You don't have to practice Sila for months and months and months and years. It can be done immediately. But it needs to be done again immediately and again immediately. And so when we think of Sila in the sense of the Achan Tra tradition that's been changing, the we're seeing it as incremental. The purification of Sila takes time. That's an incremental way of looking at it. And the noble way to look at it is that no, your Sila is perfect right now. Is it perfect now? Yes, it's right now. Okay? It's perfect right now. We don't have to abide in robes and garments and forms and rituals. That's basically a basic training for those who do not understand the noble. Once you understand the noble, then you don't shun the Sila Samadhi Panya system. You recognize that it has enormous value. But the way that I teach is because in the West, they only have the Sila Samadhi Panya. They don't have the noble, the supramundane. This is why I always teach from the supramundane position. And I don't teach at the Sila Samadhi Panya. I don't teach the ordinary. I teach students because they think that they're ready. I mean, you made it this far. You've held a job. You're not in prison, and even prisoners are still capable of doing the noble Dhamma immediately. So we don't have to train and train and train in Sila in order to become perfect at it. We can immediately become perfect at it. Just shut your mouth. Fold your hands, and your behavior is perfect. So immediately then we could go into getting the mind organized. So basically the path that we're talking about right now is in Sutta number 24, where the path starts the purification of Sila, then the purification of the mind through meditation. The purification of the mind then is the Samadhi, followed then by the purification of view. Now, view of what? Personality view. Who am I? And the answer to that question is that's a wrong question. Real personality view means that we no longer care about who I am, but rather we change the focus from who am I that is suffering into this is suffering. This is the dukkha. This is caused by behavior. It's caused this way, and when you stop doing that, it stops hurting. Immediately, when you stop banging on your head with a hammer, it immediately stops hurting. So this is the point then, is that we go from the Sila Samadhi Panya, and yet the ordinary path, that state of, oh, I've got to be in the monastery for a long time and do by all of these rules, and then I have to sit for a long time to get into jhanas and all of this kind of stuff in order to get the mind together, to get the samadhi they talk about. And yet that kind of samadhi is much more of a concentration or doing it over and over again rather than being in the present moment. That I know about first jhana or fourth jhana. I know all about it, and I know that it's so sweet and it's so nice that you don't want to get out of it no matter what. Just like computer programmers, they'll get into coding and they don't want to get out of it no matter what. Or just like YouTube. Huh?
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. 100%. I don't even enjoy it, but it's the momentum that's so strong. I'll just do a little bit more. Oh, I'm almost done. Oh, I can figure this out. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Exactly. But the same thing happens to the YouTube video watchers. Oh, just one more video and one more video, and it's 3 in the morning and one more video. We get that's a kind of concentration, but it's an ignorant kind of concentration that we're not really practicing. But so that's the reason why people will stay at the ordinary level so long, is because they think that doing something to the detriment of something else is the right way to go. I'm supposed to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. But that really doesn't ever lead to personality view that's correct. What leads to personality view that is correct is when we see the dukkha and get out of it. We begin to recognize I am not the dukkha. I am not the fear. I mean, in our language, it's built up in the sense of, oh, I'm afraid. Oh, I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm tired. Well, tiredness can be there, but it's not me. And when we begin to see that the tiredness, and we don't like the tiredness, that's the dukkha. Instead of recognizing that it's just there and time to do something about it. This is what real wisdom is. The real wisdom is to be able to see the dukkha and be able to get out of its way. And when we get a lot of wisdom, a lot of panna, that means that we can see the dukkha flying through the air in our direction, and we can step aside and miss it completely. Like example with yours is that, oh, if you stay to work at 7 o'clock, there's going to be dukkha there. But if you quit at 5, even though you have to have what you would call the strength of mind, the real wisdom, to be able to say enough now, stop. You've heard me use that word a lot, is to just stop what we're doing and relax. So keep going, keep at it, keep going. You'll get there someday. That's the incremental rule, or the incremental way. And the noble way is we're there already, stop. We have arrived. We are at the holy place. Now stop traveling. That we're here. That you're already okay. You don't have to work at being okay. You're already okay. But one of the qualities of that incremental also is all of the rules that we make up. But when we begin to see that the rules themselves that we make up actually is what's causing a lot of the dukkha, is that we set standards for ourselves. Oh, I should be better. Oh, I should get the work done faster. Oh, I should not get tired. And so we have a lot of shoulds. And this is what in Pali is called the Sila Paramasa. But the Buddha makes the point. In fact, Kat and I just read the sutta before he left here, sutta number 2 in the Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha says, what's worthy of our attention? And we always have our attention in the wrong place, in the sense of how do things affect me? Who am I? What was I? How will my future be? What will I be in the future? All of those kind of things are called a thicket of views and not worthy of our attention. What is worthy of our attention? The Four Noble Truths, most especially, this is suffering. This is it. This is the dukkha. And where is the cause of the dukkha? Right here. So you can say, this is dukkha. This is the cause of dukkha. This is the relief from dukkha, and remembering to do that is the Eightfold Noble Path. So we start with wisdom on the Noble Path rather than starting with Sila. And so this is the transition from the Sila, or the ordinary way of getting the body correct, doing it right, and then getting the mind right, and then getting our view right, is a treacherous path. That panna of who am I, by the way, the correct answer, the noble answer, the wise answer is, I haven't a clue. I don't know who I am. I mean, that kind of question is absolutely going to take someone back into dukkha, is trying to figure out who they are. I see people, in fact, we've sent around a guy who is now working at Wisdom Books selling Buddhism, and he's got a half a page of how many PhDs he's got and what universities he's teaching at, as if that matters at all. But it matters to him in the sense of this is who he is. He's defined by all of these labels, all of these things, and each one of them is on the incremental. How many PhDs does one need before they're free from PhDs? You can answer that, Drew, because how many 7 o'clocks does it take for you to recognize that freedom lies in waking up before you get tired?
Minimum a handful, maximum a lifetime.
Well, that's the whole point is the person who is practicing Buddhism going to make that major leap from worrying about who he is and his own enlightenment? Oh, it's so far such a journey. Oh, I don't know what it is. And words like nibbana. So we take these words that we don't understand and place them way high up on the shelf up there where Jesus and other religious figures are. Make them way off into the distance, which now means that we're going to have an incremental journey to get there. And the better thing to do is to pull that Buddha off of that ledge and have him right here. This is it, in this present moment. And
I experienced that with a friend somewhat about a couple of months ago, where I was describing like how I see the world and why I feel like it's important to do my bit to help other people and help animals and that sort of thing. And for me, the sort of things that I do, like, I hardly spend any time thinking about them. I have some donations which leave my account without me thinking, and then I make good decisions when I'm eating out or I'm at a supermarket. That's kind of it. And it's not even good decisions. I just don't go by the aisles where they sell animals because I'm like, like I've never been there, don't need it, it's fine. So the effort on my part is like remarkably small. And my thought process is like, oh yeah, this is why I do it. I've thought this through. Sometimes I have questions and answers, but I don't really think about it that much. And I think he was trying to be nice by saying, oh, that's really admirable. And, most people don't think like that and do that. But to me, it sounded like he was kind of, on one hand, he was trying to be nice, but on the other hand, he was trying to be nice to himself by saying, oh, my friend Drew, he's just really, really good at this stuff. He's so much better than the average person or whatever, and I don't think I am by any means. I've just
but
changed
he's
my habits
also
a
not
bit.
talking about someone random, but rather he's talking about his friend.
Yeah.
And so there's always that personality view that comes in, and that personality view of who am I is defined by my oughts and shoulds about who I should be. So there's the rules. And
there's the rules, and there's a pedestal as well, right? Which is just now he's kind of worked himself. Oh, I'm a person who's like this. He said, oh, I am not very conscientious. I am not very orderly. And I was like, you don't need to be conscientious or orderly for any of the things I described. I'm not telling you to live your life by a spreadsheet. I'm telling you, not even telling you, I'm sharing that you can do another way, which is just as fun and a lot less harmful.
Okay. Let me get into that with this analogy. You have probably heard that if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. And if you teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. All right. I would like to put some additional stuff at the front end of that. And that is that if you give a man a fish who has never had fish, he probably won't eat it and doesn't care, and therefore he's not interested in learning how to fish. So what we have to do is to feed them a steady diet of happy fish. The noble has to feed people with his smile, with his generosity, And then they begin to like that food. They'll begin to figure out, maybe they want to figure out how to do it for themselves. And then that's when the Dhamma really can be taught. But it cannot be taught just like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And that's especially true if the horse does not know what water is. And so this is the way that we're going to treat other people from the noble perspective, is that we're not going to try to teach them to fish until they ask how to fish.
He's asked a couple of times, and then I give him the answer, and then he doesn't follow through. And I've seen this a couple of times now, so I was like, well, that's the way it is. If he asks again, I'll give the same answer, and if he asks a different question, then I'll give him a different answer.
Right. It's that would be conversational questions rather than a deep longing to learn.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, given that it's done a couple of times and there haven't been any significant changes since.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
it takes a few rounds of that, but I appreciated that as well. I was like, oh, they're suffering in this, because I'm thinking that here he is asking the right questions so that he makes changes in his life, and then he's just not.
All right. So in the system that the Buddha outlines in Sutta number 117 is the noble Eightfold Noble Path, in the sense, and he is very clear about it, that where does the path start? It starts with panna. It starts with investigation. And it has a twin, sati, to remember to investigate, because it's really hard to investigate if you forget to do it. And this is the crux of the Dhamma. The noble Dhamma is to look at what's happening right now and then make a change to it, make a tweak to it right now. It's kind of a one-step operation that's done with right view, right effort, and right remembrance, to remember to do it. And those three things run and circle around each other, and it always gives benefit right here, right now. Just like your wisdom of, oh, it's time to stop. It's 5 o'clock. I'll be better off if I stop now. I can see in advance that if I don't stop, I'm going to wind up in more trouble. The same thing, by the way, happens with automobile drivers. When they get drowsy, they'll continue to drive, because getting there is more important than staying alive.
Whenever
how many of you have
people are
gotten
running,
drowsy and driven on rather than saying, hey, man, this is time to stop?
Luckily, I don't have to drive much. So usually if I am driving, I'll be like, I'm stopping. It's not worth it. Usually when I'm meeting someone and they're running late, especially if it's raining or something like that, I'll be like, don't worry, don't rush. I'd rather you get here late than in many pieces.
Mm-hmm. So that's the whole point, though. Do we have the ability to see it coming, or to see it when it arrives, rather than having to wrestle with it in dukkha, not seeing it? But the best way to see dukkha is before it hits. The second best way is to see it as it hits. But dealing with it is not the right way to do it, because that leads us back to personality view. Oh, I've got to deal with all of my suffering. And we have ourselves a little pity party and invite other people to that pity party, because misery loves company. So if we can see it from that perspective, that means that we can move out of the ordinary method and see that the incremental system doesn't work so much. One of the stories that I tell about this is, imagine that there is a shrine or a small meditation hall, got a little door, and that everybody that goes in this place has to drop all of their baggage, suitcases, backpacks, fanny pads, everything. They have to drop it in order for them to get through the door, which means that outside of this holy shrine is a huge, huge pile of baggage that now every new person who comes to that holy shrine has to crawl over all of that baggage that's been left by others. Because this is exactly what happens with Buddhism, is to get to the holy shrine of the real noble Dhamma, we have to crawl over all of the furniture and all the baggage of the ages that has been left by all of the other people who brought their baggage with them. So in that perspective, we can say that, the reason why so many people got caught into ordinary Buddhism that's incremental, just like the society, is because that's what the society supports. It supports that incremental way of doing it, rather than I can see that right now, let me drop it right now mentality of the noble path. And so with that method, we can say, all right, we're going to practice that method. In this regard, then, the Sila that was the beginner's path from the very beginning, the Sila, Samadhi, panna, when we turn that around, the panna is a whole lot better, but we have to arrive at that panna first so that that becomes the foundation of, what really needs to be done is we need to look, we need to examine. You can think about it in the sense that the child who was running around the playground yelling and hitting kids and all of that kind of stuff, it's better to get him in seclusion and get him into Sila, and then he will settle down and have that Samadhi so that he can see now that he's hurting other kids. But while he's running around doing it, he can't see it. And so this is the method of the Sila, Samadhi, panna. But here we're practicing it the different way, in the sense that now that we can see that we are harming ourselves, now that we can see that we're harming others, this is the foundation for a noble practice. And that noble practice then works so that we, in this moment, get immediate relief from our dukkha. And we do that over and over and over again. Why? Because it's very easy to fall back into ignorance, to fall back into delusion, to fall back into our instincts, to fall back into the rules, because we're basically covered with them. We've got all of that baggage and we can set it down, but within a second, we'll pick it back up again. And so we have to keep dropping it, keep setting it down, keep putting it down. And when we do that, we develop that ability to have that let go quality. And what we're really letting go of is the baggage that we determine as mine. Me, I, me, mine. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa says nothing is worth clinging to as I, me, mine. There are some things that are worth clinging to, by the way, like this present moment. Because if you're in the moment, you're in your senses and you're not thinking of selfish thoughts. So if we can move out of that ordinary method, then, like for instance with Kat, he can go and stay at the monastery, go through all of those rituals, and he can do it happily with the idea of, well, I've got nothing else to do. And if I really pay attention to the chanting and the calling, I'll probably learn it. But if I sit here having thoughts of, I don't want to be here, why do they have to have all of these rituals and all of that, then he's basically wasting his time, and he's not feeling good. He's in dukkha. But if we can have good feelings about, well, this is the training of the method of the Buddha for all ordinary people, it's not so bad. And different teachers have different ways. The test, in fact, was at Wat Suan Mokkh. When I was there for so long, we didn't do much chanting. That, in fact, every morning and every evening chanting, there was always a bunch of monks there, but they were almost always from other Wats. And they were doing at Wat Suan Mokkh, what they were in the habit of doing, but the residents of Wat Suan Mokkh, they generally didn't do it. So when I got to the United States, now I'm in Watts where chanting is done. So I'm good with that because I was ready to do it anyway. In fact, the beautiful part is that I happened to have moved into the Wat where Mahasamsak was the abbot, and he was nationwide known to be one of the best chanters. He liked to have very high monks in the hierarchy, but Achan Mahasamsak was known that if they need all the obscure chanting done for like a new building or funerals and all of that kind of stuff, that he knows the chants for it. And I was really impressed with his ability. I mean, he dozens of sutras and whatnot like that, and they do a lot of chanting, especially during the rain season. And so I actually got to the point of having to write a book, but I wrote it in self-defense, not because of an I, me, or my kind of thing. Oh, I'm writing a book. But it was more like, oh, if I'm going to learn the Pali, I need to study the Pali. I need to get these chants that the monks know out, learn what the definitions of the words mean, and learn some of the chants. That in fact, one of the points that I would make, and I was making this to Daniel, I don't know if any of you saw the note that I sent him, is that if you're going to ordain as a monk, get that chanting book out and learn your part so that it's memorized, so that it flows. Because a lot of monks, especially Western monks, they have to be prompted for every word. But if you've actually memorized the thing, then it flows like an opera. Beautiful.
I will say one strange thing is when you're chanting and you have that sense of, well, this doesn't mean anything, but I'm creating the dukkha if I start
That's
resisting
all
it.
this dukkha. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it's strange when you see all the Thai people, they're really more attached to I like really believe they're talking to the Buddha or they're chanting this. Like you can really sense they believe it. Like it's a strong belief. Like this, I am talking to the Buddha now. Like this chant, I am really inviting devas in, and I'm just there, kind of like half brain dead, like nothing to do, nowhere to go, just going through the motions while all the Thai people around me.
But wouldn't you be far better off if you were saying, hey, this stuff is good for me, even if what it is good for me, is kind of a magical thinking? At least they're enjoying that chanting. They're
Yeah.
the point that's
Depends
really
on what the
strange
chanting is, right?
well, they're getting here's the point. They're getting the benefit of the chanting out of it right then and there, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, it is. They are still creating a wholesome state, so it is real for them. But
right,
yeah,
I mean,
like
if you learn the Pali, like I get a shiver down my spine every time we chant Ehipasiko. That to me is beautiful. That to me is joyful. I love the fact that I can come. It's just like an invitation. Come and play the Dhamma. Come and see for yourself. And yeah, so anytime I learn those words and what they mean, they're like, oh yeah, we're chanting the noble Dhamma all the time.
Right, but that's the noble perspective that helps the Sila so much that if you're at the ordinary place of the Sila, you're going to be like cat. Oh, he's resisting it. Oh, he does not want to put this form on. Yeah, his arm is broken, but he doesn't want to wear the cast. And here the Thai people are, they're getting a great joy out of it. They've got some magical ideas about what they're chanting, but they're getting the benefit of it right then and there. And if you can bring that curiosity, rather than having the doubt of what good is this, into the curiosity of, oh, what does this mean? And look, those Thai people are getting such great benefit and great joy out of it. Why am I sitting here hating it? That's the noble perspective. They're getting the benefit out of the ordinary way. They're into the Sila Samatipanya, but they're getting benefit out of it. Here you're trying to practice the noble way, and you're shooting yourself in the foot because you don't like the Sila. don't like the chanting, don't like the forms. And the answer to that is there's great benefit in doing that. It's actually a kind of discipline, like a piano player. I mean, like Maha Samsat, knowing so much of the Pali, but any piano player has to sit down and actually practice the piano. And when he does, he can learn to make beautiful music. That those chants can become absolutely beautiful. One of the ways, by the way, that they would do that is by chanting Ipiti So Bhagawa, that whole show, 108 times. It generally takes about 3 hours. But wow, does the mind get really into it.
That is true. Like you do get concentrated from just chanting, and you're really mindful of every single sentence by sentence by sentence, word by word by word. Like
I love a good Itipiso Bhagava.
Itipiso Bhagava.
It just as soon as you said that, the Araham Samma
Sambuddho Icha Charana Sampano Lukado Lo Gabidu Anutaro Purisadhamasa Devamanusanam Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay. Now do that 108 times and you'll get pretty good at it. And so that and that it does, it concentrates the mind, but it concentrates it not in the sense of working hard and struggling and doing the kind of concentration that so much is involved with what is normally practiced as meditation, and rather gets the mind into there's nothing really else. I mean, we're just staying on the Dhamma, on the Dhamma, on the Dhamma, on the Dhamma. And that basically is what then becomes of the Sotapan, is because nothing becomes as important as Dhamma. We're enthusiastic for the Dhamma. We want to hear the Dhamma. We've got no doubt about the Dhamma. We're into the Dhamma all the time. We want to hear the Dhamma. We want to say the Dhamma. We want to recite the Dhamma. We want to read the Dhamma. We want to hear the Dhamma. And mostly important, we want to speak the Dhamma. Got nothing else to say but Dhamma, 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 Dhamma. And getting into that frame of reference, you can do that then without the chanting. But the chanting really, really helps to do the thing over and over and over and over and over again. That morning chant, every morning we go through that morning chant. Every evening we go through that morning chant. That's the ordinary path, but the ordinary mind can become quite delighted in doing that. Can the noble sit down without the chanting and start right into it and keep a noble mind about the chanting? Because that's the difference then between that incremental system versus the immediate. Can you immediately like the chanting? Can you immediately fit in? Can you immediately enjoy the fact that you've got a cast on your arm? That would be the noble way. And so this is where the samadhi then comes in, is through that repetition, that repetition, that repetition. And then with the outcome, you see the outcome of the ordinary path, the Sila, Samadhi, Panna, the outcome is the wisdom. But here we're going to start with the wisdom. We're going to continue to where we get the mind completely organized. And then the natural outcome is Sila. The natural outcome of the practice of the Buddha is that your behavior is perfect. It's magnificent. You don't harm anybody. You don't do anything wrong. And that you know it. And that you've got it. And that gives great joy to know that you're not harming people. And so these are the two ways to do it. And I would suggest then that it kind of takes a combination of both. And that we can actually practice the Sila Samadhi Panna method through the Panna. To have the wisdom. Okay? So, with Drew having the wisdom to stop work at 5, or the programmer his name was Willie, and the story is that he was sitting there on his laptop at home doing the coding, and his dad comes in, an elderly Chinese gentleman, and he gets upset because Willie won't stop doing the code. Willie made a mistake there. And so that's where the idea of dad becomes the Zen master, that when dad comes by, you stop what you're doing and pay attention to him. Just like Kat, you would do that with Ajahn Maitri. Whatever you were doing, if Ajahn Maitri comes up, you're going to stop what you're doing and pay attention to him. Right? Okay, so that whole quality then of the noble mind is to be able to stop what we're doing, even though we're concentrated on it, even though that we're really into that video, we can stop, put the lights out and go to sleep. Or we can stop and pay attention to the Zen master. Or we can stop and pay attention to Achan Po. Now, Achan Po was quite a master at it. I mean, one of the things that he'd do to me was stand outside my kuti, waiting for me to figure out that I should stop whatever I was doing in that kuti and come out and pay attention to the fact that here he was standing in my yard. He wasn't coughing or clearing his throat or kicking the leaves or hanging by the tree or any of that. He was just standing there. And my worry would be, how long has he been standing there? Why was I so out of it? Why wouldn't I know that he was there? Now, in fact, what he was teaching clairvoyance. He was teaching me to know when he was there, though I don't get him from the six senses. That you have to pay attention. This is the noble way, is to wake up and pay attention to what's happening right now. That's all it takes, is to be awake. Be here now. But we get that training by being in the robes and watching with the other monks, and by watching the other monks, we actually, that Sila practice is actually a kind of a practice of be here now. You got to look at what they're doing, and you do what they're doing. And so there's less distinction between the ordinary and the noble path than I give credit. I start talking about, oh, there's two methods here, but guess what? They're interrelated. They're intertwined together.
I feel like people in this community really shit on the ordinary path a lot. You know, like it's like lesser or it's not. It's below me to do the ordinary path, to practice Sila, go straight into Panya. But I think for you also that maybe you were taught immediately Panya, Samadhi, Sila because it was recognized you were ready for that immediately. But I think also a lot of people should more practice Sila and have restraint also in the beginning too. You can, yeah.
But that restraint becomes easier and easier when you have the wisdom. And it's really, really hard in the beginning when you're doing something that you're not familiar with, and so you don't like it. And here you come asking me, oh, come take my position that all of that chanting and all of that ritual that they do at the temple is of no value. No, now you're beginning to see it's of enormous value. That most people, in fact, will not make the transition from the ordinary to the noble without taking those ordinary steps. But the real problem is that those ordinary steps can get stuck so that it's Sila, 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 and Samadhi, 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 and they never come around to the wisdom of the real Eightfold Noble Path. And the wisdom is, see that dukkha right now and do something about it right now. That's the wisdom. Just because that old man is swinging that shotgun around doesn't mean that everybody's got to stand there and hope it's not their knee that gets shot off. We point that guy out. No, you got to put that gun down to the ground. You don't swing it around in the air. You unload it so that everybody feels safe. Or that we recognize that, hey, it's better to quit at 5 o'clock. It's better to stop the coding and pay attention to Dad. Or that when someone is criticizing on Reddit, hey, that's not me that's being criticized. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And so we dodge that error. It's not me that he's criticizing.
Oh gosh, that was another one this week.
Mm-hmm.
Though I
So-
did comment saying, so that to be fair, I commented saying this is my last, and then the last time I commented, I also said this is my last. So I'm done with that. So I've made it very clear.
Oh, that you're not going to post, or that he
Pretty
can't
much.
get to you.
Both. I'm just like, look, this is my final goodbye. Like, this is what I think. I'm
Mhm.
off.
Well, that's actually a kind of wisdom that I've talked to many guys about it. Here's a similar situation, and that is that you've got a wife that's arguing with you, and she argues a lot. I mean, how many guys have a wife that doesn't argue? That's part of being married. There's argue, argue, argue. So if you cannot shut your mouth and let her argue and stay there with her, then the next best thing to do is to shut your mouth completely and take a hike, walk away, leave them. That's the wise thing to do, because you know if you stay in that situation, you're going to catch an error or two. So it's better to get out of it. That's wisdom, is to stay away from dangerous situations. Just like leaving at 5 o'clock is learning to stay out of dangerous situations. Or walking into the meditation hall for the chanting and recognize I'm going to be here and I'm going to enjoy the heck out of this, because my only option is misery.
The- yeah, you start to see the only option is you just enjoy it because there's no other option, because all other options are dukkha. So the only
Yes.
option, the wise thing to do is enjoy it. Everything else is just dukkha. Anything else than complete enjoyment is dukkha. You just have to.
Beautiful. You got it. That's the teaching right there. That's what makes it noble, is we recognize through wisdom that the only choice that we've got is to have fun or be miserable. And it's our choice every opportunity. And the wisdom is to be able to wake up and see that, to see it coming. That in fact you can begin to see that on the way to the meditation hall for the chanting, you'd already started to feel bad about it. Or maybe when you were getting in your kuti, getting up to go to the chanting, you were already feeling bad about, oh, I don't want to go. And then if you're really sharp, you'll recognize that 40 minutes or an hour before the chanting begins, you have the thought, I don't want to do it. And you're already planning on being miserable an hour before it happens. And if you can catch it then, now you're going to be able to do something about it easily. Aha, I saw that thought. And I can plan on having fun an hour before, 10 minutes before, walking in there, sitting down. Every moment is an opportunity to remember to feel good right here, right now. That's what makes it noble. But the ordinary people, or the ordinary way that you would do it, is, oh, I got to go to the chanting because somehow it's going to be good for me. The abbot will let me stay in the wat. I'll get kicked out if I don't. Look at all of that misery kind of thoughts that we have. And we always have that choice. That's what makes the noble path noble, is to recognize we've got a choice if we pay attention. That we're not incrementally getting anywhere. We've either got it right now or we don't. You're either noble right now or you're not. You're either a pilgrim right now or you're a resident right now. Which are you? Have you arrived at the holy place, or are you still on your way to the holy place, one step at a time, incrementally? This is the big distinction between all of Western culture and the teaching of the Buddha. And yet most Westerners are still, because of their culture, they're still thinking that Buddhism is also incremental. That someday I'll get there. Someday my prince will come. Someday the holy karma machine is going to waltz in with his Shakti pot, spray me on the head, and then I'll feel good.
Or you're not good enough now. I'll get it in my next lifetime.
I'm not good enough now. I'll get it later. Yes. That's the ordinary way of thinking. And the noble way of thinking is, I've got it right now. I can see it right now. This is it right now. So that in that regard, words like nibbana, enlightenment, and arahat can be seen through the incremental way, or you can see it through the sudden way. That if you cool off right now, you're cool. That's nibbana. You don't have to wait for some magical nibbana way down the road. You can get it right now. Just chill out. It's right here, right now. Another one would be, because Kat and I have talked about it, and Pedro and I have talked about it too, and that is that sometimes we need to get away from our parents, because when we're back around our parents, they are incremental. And we expect to be and fit in with their incremental way of living, and the right thing for us to do. And we see this in many, many places. So let me give you a few examples. Is that when a guy goes to the military, either by drafting or he's enlisted, he goes to boot camp. And in boot camp, does he get to go home at night to be with mommy, eat her food, or does he stay in the encampment? When someone becomes a member of a cult, does the cult let him go back and stay at home, or do they kind of keep him in their facility? Okay, so this is basically what ashrams and wats are all about. The young men in Thailand can really get away from their family and get around noble people. And it's highly recommended that we get out of our old ways, and the best way to do that is by getting away from our old ways people. To take a hike, to get away from them. Even if the only opportunity we have is to going into seclusion, which means then that when we are around mom and dad, we behave in a way that's mindful and noble. Instead of trying to fit in with the way that they want us, we stay above it. And then when mom and dad are not in the room, they're not in the mind either. Out of sight, out of mind. Get rid of them. Throw them out. Let's have some noble thoughts. Let's do an Ipiti So and Bhagawa for 108 times. Let's start thinking about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. Let's start thinking about, wow, how good I feel when I'm practicing to throw out those unwholesome thoughts. And so we begin to think about being noble. Not in the sense of a person's being noble, but the fact is that there is noble. And that's what the mind is on. Noble. What does that mean? Above it all. Mom and dad can't touch me. Who is it, the musician that has that song, da 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 da, can't touch me?
Oh,
that's who's
Mr. T. Can't touch, or no?
Yeah, no, that's not Mr. T.
MC Hammer.
MC Hammer.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's a very noble way of looking at it, is that it doesn't not matter what they do, they can't touch you. Why? Because who they're trying to touch is a personality that has moved on. They're trying to touch something that you used to be.
Yeah, they're talking to their old image of you in their mind. Like they're talking to you like a child. Always the parents, no matter how you change, they will just talk to you like you're 6, 7 years old. And
Right.
Eventually, like
Yes, that's how, and not only that, but the society does that too. The society incrementally still refers back to how you were in the past, rather than seeing what's happening right here, right now. And so the teaching of the Buddha is that radical. It's a radical teaching. All of Western philosophy, all of Western religion all of psychotherapy, all of university education, in fact, all of education is all about getting better. Especially Western philosophy. That Western philosophy does not have a clue that there is a different way of looking in the world. And so you got all these people with all these PhDs. They've even got some universities, even the special ones, with Buddhist studies program. And then they put Buddhist studies in either the religious department or they'll put it in the philosophy department. And in fact, the reality is that the Noble Dhamma doesn't belong in a university at all. And if it does, where does it belong? It belongs in the dorm room where the kid's got the door closed and he's sitting there happily, not paying attention to the university at all. He's having too much fun. And so in that respect, I guess, well, maybe Buddhist studies is the right thing to do. But no, what needs to be done is the registrar at the university says, okay, you're signing up for a PhD in Buddhist studies, go to Wat Suan Mok and stay there for 3 years, and we'll give you credit towards your PhD for that. That's what we need
Shinzen
in
Young
West.
did the opposite.
Pardon?
He kind of ended up doing something like that. He was going to a Japanese monastery to try and understand Buddhism because he was very familiar with multiple languages. I mean, he still is Sanskrit, Chinese, Pali, of like all the Japanese, Chinese. And he went to a Japanese monastery when he was young to try and understand. And the abbot wasn't letting him have anything. He wasn't answering any questions. He was just like, come to the monastery, you either stay, and then maybe at some point I will answer your questions.
Mm-hmm. When you're finished with all those stupid questions, you'll be ready to learn.
Or bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
And so Shinzen, he was doing this from a purely academic point of view. But he followed the Sila from this kind of, I want to do this, so I learn more and I learn for this degree that I'm doing, etc. And obviously he learned to become a very skilled meditator, and he's a meditation teacher. So
right, that's what we have to do, and that's why I would advise, even if someone does not have any motivation, let's say, to come to Thailand for the long haul, at least they can have the motivation to go make friends with the temple abbots that do exist in the West. But in fact, there's about 500 watts, and this is the way that I would mostly recommend is incrementally, in an ordinary way, start spending some time with nobles at the Wat, so that we can now begin to make that transition out of someday my prince will come or someday I'll get it. Let me keep working at it and come to the noble position of, hey, this is it. We got it right now. That's what it takes and I would highly recommend that everybody spend time in whatever Wats or monasteries that they have available to them. That in fact, Pedro mentioned that he had met an Italian monk or was about to go visit one. And what did I say to you, Pedro? Take him home and go with him. Just introducing yourself to the monk and spending 10 minutes in conversation, that's the incremental way. Jump in. Go home with him. Do the noble path. Let's get this thing right, and let's get it right now. There's no place to go and nothing to do. And when you're in that state, then you can't be late, because you got no place to go. And yet, this is what the ordinary path in the Western Buddhism is all about, is by gaining something, going someplace, gaining sotapan, gaining enlightenment, gaining nibbana. All of that kind of stuff is basically right out of General Motors, making another car. And let's make another car. Someday we'll be rich if we only make another car. Or how about the farmer? Pulling a carrot out of the ground, pulling carrots out of the ground. If I keep pulling carrots out of the ground, someday I'll be okay. And so our whole society is built on that. One more book to read, one more degree to get, one more car to buy. Just keep going, keep walking, keep getting. And that's exactly the Western mentality. And that's why, though we have a great civilization, it's not a very enjoyable civilization. I mean, those great big tall buildings, I can't get in there. The guards just stopped me at the door. Where's your shirt? Where's your shoes?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say there's some buildings where they let you go out to the top and there's like a nice garden, a bar, and then you buy an expensive drink. But even for those places, they sometimes have a dress code.
Mm-hmm. Well, the real point that we're making is that we have to come out of our civilized way of thinking everything is incremental, going towards perfection, into the sense of right now. Instant enlightenment, instant gratification, not delayed gratification. This is the real teaching of the Buddha. It's spelled out so easy to see, but because we have the frame of reference of incremental, we're not able to see it so well. And so Western Buddhism, with all of these special teachers, a lot of them are still wrapped up in that incremental way of doing it, rather than recognizing, hey, you already got everything you need. You can be happy right now without the baggage that you're trying to accumulate, because you'll just be putting it down later anyway. So all the degrees and all the reading and all the books, nothing. Don't mean a thing. There's nothing to it. That everything is in fact empty. That's the wisdom, to see everything is empty. It doesn't have a self, doesn't have an importance, doesn't have a meaning. Nothing means anything other than the meaning that people give to it. There is no meaning in life. So that means your choice is to either give your meaning life or give up on finding meaning. I don't know what life means, and isn't that wonderful? I don't care. It doesn't matter.
I remember something Dean Slater said, that when somebody asks him that question, he asks, what does meaning mean? So when you look at a road sign, the sign means something about the road, but the sign is not the road itself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The finger that points to the moon is not the moon.
That's a really good point. Yes. That
and
meaning
so
is not the road.
Means,
it
asking
doesn't mean
what life means is like a bit strange, because you can't point to anything outside of awareness or experience or consciousness. For
being alive is what it means. It means being alive.
Being alive. You can't point to anything outside of being alive, because by definition you don't experience it.
Mm-hmm. So everything is empty of meaning. Can we just sit down and be happy with that? That chanting doesn't mean anything. Isn't that marvelous? We could just enjoy it and absorb it. But the chanting itself doesn't mean anything, but the chanting of the Dhamma, that's what it means, is to be here now, be here with it, enjoy it. I think pretty soon you'll be on my porch chanting to me. because you like it.
This is what the Hare Krishnas do really well, is that they really get into their chanting.
Hmm.
And they work themselves into a good bit of joy out of that. So you can learn a lot from a different tradition about that sort of thing as well.
Hmm. The same
And-
thing would be true with the whirling dervishes and many other groups for various points. How about Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, the last movement? Very, very. Um, he was already quite deaf and about to die, so that was his funeral. And what is it? Ode to Joy. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Bum, 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 bum. I don't remember the words. Ta-da. But anyway, that whole idea is in this moment, let's enjoy that life is music. And the chanting is music. It's repetitive. And we can get into that. It's of enormous value to us if we pay attention to what we're doing rather than hating doing it. And yet that's how everybody starts off with the Sila. Every grunt going to boot camp hates it the first couple of days. But upon graduation, they feel like that they've learned something. They've accomplished something. They can do things now that they could not do when that course started. But that's still the ordinary, but it is in the sense of making that accomplishment, getting that thing done, to where the noble grunt would have never been anywhere near that military base in the first place. And if he wound up in that boot camp, what he's going to do is he's going to enjoy every step. Up, 2, 3, 4. Yes, sir, I could do that. Crawl over that building, walk through that mud. Yeah, I can do that. That's the noble way of looking at it is you can't touch me. You can't get to me. I can handle this. Everything is okay right now. So anybody have any final words on this? I think I about beat this enough. We've got it right now. Marcus, you have anything to say?
No, I think we've got it. Yeah.
Pedro, what's happening?
No, I think I got the points. Actually, I thank you because it's made me more understanding more again, like what I'm trying to do in this period of life. So yes, also thank you for repeating the answer about the monk. Take him home. Go with him. I will. I will go there and see.
All right. Excellent. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this talk, and I really appreciate your interactions too.
Thank you, Dhammarato. Likewise. Always joy.
Excellent. All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Dhammarato. Bye, bye.
Okay. Bye bye.